everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Lunchtime Live. I want to make sure, there it is, the picture's coming through good. So good to see you all. Hope you're having a great week. And let me see what's new for me this week. I've got well, I got my flu shot, so that's always good. If you haven't got your flu shot yet, you definitely want to get that done. I hear it's going to be a nasty flu this year, so get that taken care of. I've also been spinning a lot this week. I wanted to show you what I spun. My throat's a little dry, sorry, give me 1 second. Oh, that's better. Okay, so I want to show you what I've spun. This is a giant skein. I haven't actually measured the yardage yet. To do that, I'll have to open it out. It's an estimate of yardage, right? So I'll measure the circumference or the width of the skein, multiply it by 2 to get the circumference, and then I'll count. I'll actually go through and count how many strands are in this bundle, and that'll tell me, you know, multiply those two numbers and that'll tell me the total yardage. So that is my spinning. And what this is, okay, so this is like a compilation of a bunch of projects I had going. Let me show you, let me move some of this out of the way. I want to show you up close so you can see what's in here. Let's see, there we go. Okay, so, wait, it didn't go. There we go. Okay, so what this is, and you can see I made some mistakes. There's some bits where it's loose and all of that, but it'll just have more texture. But let's look at this strand right here. Okay, do you see the 3 separate strands that are in there? The red strand is a Falklands merino wool that I got as a Christmas present from my husband, probably, gosh, 2 years, 3 years ago, something like that. Finally spun it about a year ago and set it aside and never knew what to do with it. The gray stuff is merino that I got, like commercial merino, just generic merino, from Ashland Bay, I think is the company that makes the wool or processes the wool. And I got that from a local yarn shop. And that I've been spinning, I got like a pound of it, and I've been spinning a bunch of that for just like on its own, but I thought it would look cool as one of the plies in this, and it worked out. I really like it. And then that really thin white ply in there, do you see that? That was, our spinning guild did a breed study on Gulf Coast native wool, which comes from the Gulf Coast, and it's also, gosh, I'm trying to remember what breed it is. I think Gulf Coast native is its own breed now. I think it's been sufficiently separated from other breeds that it's actually its own breed now. But that was Gulf Coast native that we got. It had been washed and everything, but it was still full of sand, largely sand. Yeah, I'm gonna have to twist this later. It's not cooperating. There we go. It was full of a lot of sand and dirt and vegetable matter, and we just got like a chunk of the fleece for the breed study. So it was a good sized chunk, but it was not combed or carded or any of that. Like it wasn't made into a spinnable form. So I actually combed that earlier in the spring, and then spun that just now into that really thin ply. I wanted to get the most yardage I could out of it, and that's what's in there. So that's been a fun spinning project. The other thing I worked on is, and this is the new post on the blog, this is the electric bubblegum baby blanket. Here we go. There, so you can see the border, and then it's got these little bubbles all through here. And this is done only working with one color at a time. So that I think makes it really kind of cool. Here, let me show you. It uses spike stitches, and the spike stitches go into the row below, or the row of the same color below. So it like this stitch skips over a couple of stitches. to get you to this stitch, which is how you get this kind of continuous lines of color, even though you're actually working 2 rows of pink and then 2 rows of blue and then 2 rows of pink. So there's no carrying of the yarn or anything. This is similar to what you would consider mosaic crochet, but not quite. It's a little different, and it just uses these spike stitches. So that is the new pattern on the blog, and it's not actually a brand new pattern. I had originally, sorry, I got an itch. I had originally written this pattern for All Free Crochet when they were celebrating their, I want to say 10th anniversary. And the way it worked with that is the rights reverted back to me after a certain period of time. So now they've reverted back to me, and it's available on Stitches and Scraps. And I'm trying something new with the broadcast today that let me put all the links and everything in the description already. So if you look in the description, you should see all the links there already, which is cool. I hope it works out, because that's a much easier way to do it than to come back later and add it all. Okay, so that was this week's pattern, the Electric Bubblegum Baby Blanket. And I just love that name. It's fun to say, Electric Bubblegum Baby Blanket. All right, so for next week on the blog, we're going to have the new Scrappy Stitchers Stash Bash pattern. And that's going to be, remember, before we started working on cables in our Lunchtime Lives, we did a whole section on color work and different kinds of color work. That's going to be a color work project. Hi, Beth. That's going to be a color work project. And the cool thing with that is I'm using these bobbins, and I want to show these to you because they're really cool. Oh, I should say we've done tapestry in the last project. So this one's going to be actually intarsia, where you're working with separate balls of each color, which is why these bobbins are so cool. So these are little yarn bobbins, and I want to show you how to use them. So what they do is they open up like this. So you fold the top part back, and they open up like this. They really do. Trying not to mess up my nails, which is why I'm having trouble. There we go. They open up like that, and then you wrap the yarn around it, and then you just take this and pop it down closed over it. And you get like, this one is actually filled, if you can see a little bit in there, with pink yarn that's got lots of beads and everything on it, because I used it for a knit shawl that had this really thin beaded yarn in it. This one is prepped for the project that we're going to be working on. And the cool thing about this, now I've overfilled this, but when they're not overfilled, if you use the yarn, see how it doesn't go anywhere? So you can leave this dangling at the back of your work, and you've got like your stitch right here, okay? And then just this dangling. You don't have a whole big ball attached that's gonna get tangled and unroll and all of that. Nope, you just have this little bobbin. So these are from, when I got them, it was Knit Picks. Knit Picks is now also We Crochet. And I actually got these as a Christmas present. I know this is like the week of Christmas presents, right? I got this as a Christmas present from my mother years ago, and I've used them a lot. This is the only size, believe it or not, the medium size is the only size I haven't used. There's Knit Picks. So I talked to We Crochet, and they are going to sponsor our prize for next week's Stash Bash. And you can see that I'm using bobbins in the project, so maybe that's part of the prize. Maybe. We'll have to see. I don't want to give away too much. But that will be for next week. That comes out next week. And they're super useful, you guys. If you haven't tried these, they're awesome. The only thing that I would say is make sure you don't overfill them, because then they don't work as well. And B, make sure you're not using one that's too big for the yarn that you're using. Because if you have really fine yarn like this, sorry, let me get it open again. If you have really fine yarn like this one, the problem, see how thin that yarn is? And it's really not the strongest yarn, right? The problem with using, for example, the big size with this yarn is that it would end up being too much weight pulling on that yarn. See, with this size it pulls a little bit, right? But you don't want so much weight hanging off the end of the yarn that it ends up stretching it out. So you want to make sure you're using the right size, which is why you really need to have all 3 sizes. And the other cool thing, they snap together. So for storing little leftover bits or when you're ready to move your project, they just, of course, now I'm doing it on video, it won't snap. Here we go. They snap together. Ta-da! So it's really cool for storing your yarn. This project I did years ago, and the yarn is still there because I haven't needed that bobbin again, which if I ever do, I'll have to take it off. But so that's a sneak peek at what our prize is going to be next week. Now the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is, oh, never mind. I already talked to you about that. I was going to talk to you about the bubblegum blanket, but I already told you about that. Okay, so now we're on to our demo portion. Now the last few weeks we have been doing cables, okay? And we've actually gotten to, I finished this swatch off after we got to the crossing part right here where I showed you how to do all different kinds of crosses, and this one was the nice complicated basket weave style. So I've done that, and then I just extended it with some more post stitches, and I'm setting this swatch aside now. We're going to make a new swatch because what I want to show you, when you look at this swatch, look at the back. Do you see all the places where we skipped stitches? This puts the cables kind of in line. I think of them as like in line with the existing stitches. The cables are part of the stitch count from the beginning, okay? And that makes these cables. Now I'm going to show you how to make cables that pop a little bit more up off the fabric. And the way to do that is to keep them separate from the original stitch count. So here I've started another swatch. We're going to do exactly this same cable, but just in a slightly different way. I've started another swatch with 8 double crochets, okay? The wrong side row of our swatch is always going to be single crochet, except for that first row because I wanted the double crochets to be able to pick up. And I think on this one I started right in with, I didn't do another wrong side row. Right, perfect, okay. So the pattern is 1 single crochet, 2 cables, right, or 2 post stitches. So I'm going to do the 2 post stitches. First I'll do my post stitch, okay, and then normally you would skip the top of the stitch that's behind there, right? To make the cable pop more, we're not going to skip it. I'm going to do my single crochet into that stitch. Now that stitch is on top of that single crochet, not instead of that single crochet, okay? So now we're going to do another one. And I'm going to do the single crochet behind that stitch as well, okay? So now these cables are separate from the rest of the single crochets. Now in the pattern there were then 2 more single crochets, okay? And now I'm on the other side, so I'm actually, and you can switch this up either way you like it, okay? I'm actually going to do the single crochet first. So I'm going to first single crochet into this stitch, and then I'm going to do the cable into it. So you can do it either way, either first stitch into it and then do the cable, or do the cable and then stitch into it. Just be consistent, or like I'm doing, mirror it on the opposite sides of the fabric, okay? So now I have added, for all intents and purposes, I have added 4 stitches. These 4 cables are added stitches on top of the fabric. And I know it tends to make it bow out a little bit, but once we cinch it in and once we keep working with the rest of the cables, it'll come out straight. This is actually the technique I used in this square. All of these cables, even though they're individual cables, but they are all floating on top of the fabric. There's no gaps behind the fabric. And that's the other cool thing. Notice that the back of this fabric now is nice and solid, okay? It's not, it doesn't have the skipped stitches that that one does. So let's do the next row. Let's get my hair out of it. So for the next row we just did, here we go, we just did another row of straight up cables, right? So let's go, first of all, we've got to do a row of single crochet for our back. Okay, 1. Now I'm going to skip the cable stitches. So this one is a cable stitch, I'm going to skip it. This is the single crochet I worked into it. Okay, this is a cable stitch, I'm going to skip it. The next one is a single crochet. Okay, now there were the 2 single crochet in the middle, and yeah, this gets harder to keep track of where your stitches are, right? This was a single crochet, and then this was a cable, so I skip it. This was a single crochet, this was a cable, so I skip it. Now I'm back to my 8 stitches. It's cinched back together, and the cables are nicely floating on top, and you can actually see the tops of each of the cables because we didn't work into them at all. Okay, so now let's do our second row of cables. Single crochet in the first stitch. Now I'm doing a cable. Okay, oh sorry, just double. Now I'm doing a cable, same as before, around the post of this previous cable. Okay, see how it's not connected, it's not inside. Now I go do this this stitch behind it, and then do the double crochet post, double crochet around that cable, and then I go into the stitch behind that. Okay, 2 stitches in the middle. Now on this one I was doing the single crochets first, so single crochet, cable. Okay, and I'm going a little fast on the actual cable stitches because this is our 4th week of doing cables. So if you want a refresher on how to do the post stitches, go back and look at some of our previous weeks where I demoed the actual cables a little bit slower. This is more about the method that lets the cables pop on top a little bit more. Pop on top. I like that. Okay. Next row is just single crochets, but remember we've got to skip our cables again. So it's single crochet, skip the cable, single crochet, skip the cable, single crochet, 2 in the middle. Okay, that's a single crochet, skip the cable, single crochet, skip the cable, and then single crochet for the last stitch. Oops. Okay, now we get to the point where we moved our cable, right? We made the cable move. So same thing, we're going to do that again here. Okay. This time we want to move it over by 1 stitch in that direction. So I'm going to do 2 stitches first and then do my cable. Okay. Then do the single crochet behind my cable, right? Then do the other cable. Okay, now there's no single crochets in the middle, so I got to do the single crochet behind this cable, right? And now I'm going to start with these single crochets, but I want to do, or with these cables, but I want to do the single crochet first. So single crochet first, and then the cable. Okay, single crochet behind the cable, or not behind the cable, but for the next cable, and then do the cable. Okay, and then I've got 2 single crochets on the end. So now you can see that just like we did here, I have made the cables move towards the center. Okay, it looks a little bit different because of the extra single crochets behind it. So let's go back and do our wrong side row again. We know we have 2 single crochets at the beginning, then a cable. So the single crochet behind that one, then a cable, then another single crochet. Now we have single crochet, cable, single crochet, cable, and then 2 single crochets. So notice I'm skipping all the cables, and my stitch count is always on this wrong side row going to be the same 8 that I had to start with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Now I come back. Now we're going to do that fancy cross. Are you guys ready for this? Okay. So 2 single crochets for the edge stitches, right? Now the first, this one gets confusing, remember? Okay, so the first 2 cables are going to be coming from here, and we're using treble crochets because they have to move a lot. So I do my treble crochet and do this cable. Okay, and then I do a single crochet in the next stitch to be behind that cable. Then I do my treble crochet in the next cable. Okay, and I do my single crochet behind that for that cable. Okay, now we did the funky crisscross. The first one goes over the first cable and under the second cable. So over the first cable, under the second cable, pick up this stitch here, okay, pull it out, there we go, oh, and then finish our post treble. Oh, I screwed up. I forgot, on this side of the work we're doing the single crochets first, right? So a single crochet to go behind this cable. Now I do that over, under, grab the stitch, pull it up, and then finish my cable, my treble here, okay, and even that out. See, it's over that one, under that one. Now I do a single crochet for the next stitch, and then I do my, this one should be, oops, I'm getting a phone call. It's my mother-in-law's calling me, or my father-in-law, I'm not sure which, but I will have to call them back later. Okay, so now I go under this one and over this one to grab this cable, pull it all out to where I can see it clearly, and finish this stitch. Okay, wiggle it back into place, and then we've got the 2 edge stitches to do. And let's do the single crochet in the back. There's the 2 edge stitches, skip the cable, do the single crochet, skip the cable, do the single crochet, do the single crochet here, skip the cable, single crochet, skip the cable, and then 2 more single crochets. Okay, now we're back on the other side, and we're going to do just 1 more row of, well, 2 more rows of just straight up cables. So first I'm going to move it, then do 1 row of straight up cables. So first I'm going to move the cable back over to where I want it, so just 1 stitch this time. Do the double crochet cable, and then do a single crochet behind it. Do the next double crochet cable, there it is, you see that? Okay, do the next double crochet cable, and do the single crochet behind it. Now there was 2 single crochets for the middle, 1 single crochet for the first cable, and then we do that cable stitch, 1 single crochet for the second cable, and then we do that cable stitch, okay, and then the last single crochet at the edge. And you can see that cross. Okay, now I'm going to do another row of single crochets for the back side. Remember to skip your cable, so it was 1 single crochet at the edge, then cable, then a single crochet, skip the cable, okay, then a single crochet, 2 single crochets for the middle, and then single crochet, skip the cable, single crochet, skip the cable, and then 1 single crochet for the edge. Last row, or last cable row, we're just going to go straight up. So 1 single crochet, post stitch, cable, single crochet behind it. Okay, cable, single crochet behind it. 2 single crochets for the middle, right? Cable, and single crochet behind it. Cable, and single crochet behind it. Nope, sorry, you guys, sorry, I messed it up, you guys. Okay, so this one I'm doing the single crochets before the cable, right? So single crochet, cable, single crochet, cable. So whether you put the single crochets before or after the cable, it doesn't make too much difference. You just have to be consistent and know where your single crochets are going. The point is, for every cable you should have the single crochet that goes behind it, and then the last stitch there. So now when I finish my last row, we'll have this all done. This one is a cable, so skip it, single crochet, cable, single crochet. Okay, 2 in the middle, single crochet, skip the cable, single crochet, skip the cable, single crochet in the last stitch. let's fasten this off. My handy dandy clover cutter, I love this thing. Okay, fasten that off, and now let's compare our two swatches. Let's stretch this up. Okay, and get this one all stretched up. Now, this swatch is the same exact pattern as this one, okay? I don't know if you can tell so well from the video, but these cables are puffier. They stand up on top of the fabric. They're taller. These ones are more squished down into the fabric. All right, these cables are more defined. These ones are a little bit less defined. Okay, this fabric is much stiffer because it has an extra layer of cables on top of it. This fabric is a little bit looser because the cables are part of the fabric. Another real difference you can see is the back. The back of this one looks like completely smooth single crochet because the only stitches that ever got shown on the back were single crochets, right? Because we skipped all those cables that are in the front. This one, on the other hand, has all these little ridges and pockets where the cables are. So that actually was the key factor that made me use this technique with this blanket square, because it's a blanket square for a baby blanket. This was the blanket, right? I didn't want all of these little pockets here that toes and fingers could get stuck in. I thought that the blanket would last longer and work better if it had a nice solid back. So that's why I chose the floating cables for that blanket. But I also do like that they show much better, right? I mean, they just pop up. Look at that cross in the center. Look at how much more well-defined that is. It just pops up off of this. So that's why I like it. It's a little trickier to manage where you're putting your single crochets versus the cables, but I prefer it because it gives you a more well-defined cable. And with that, let me see if there's any questions. Anybody watching got any questions? Okay, so with that, I am now done with my cable section that we were working on. There's so much more to talk about with cables, but I think you guys would get sick of me talking about cables every week. So that is the end of this segment. So if there's something else you want me to look at for the next week or the next several weeks, if you want something else that works well as a series, let me know. I don't, as of yet, have anything planned, but I will try to. And that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for watching and hanging out with me. Have a good rest of your week and a good weekend, and I will see you back here next week. Bye.